So I wanted to start, we're calling this program Stepping with Faith into Action, Addressing the Climate Change, the climate crisis. And the first thing I started with was a quote from John Woolman. Oh. "The produce of the earth is a gift from our gracious Creator to the inhabitants. And to impoverish the earth now to support outward greatness appears to be an injury to the succeeding age." He wrote that a long time ago, but completely applicable today. So what we wanted to do first was look at what the meeting has done over the years. And I've only been part of this meeting for about 3.5 or 4 years. So I'm looking back and asking people the things that have happened here so far. I found out from Nancy that in 1985, Lehigh Valley Monthly Meeting became a certified wildlife habitat. And then over the years, as landscaping was done, more and more native plants, shrubs, and trees have been planted to support native species. Then, when we needed to have our HVAC system, which you heard buzzing on and off today, those little mini splits, when the HVAC system needed to be revised, there was an installation of heat pumps, which are powered by wind power through PP&L, our energy, what we call that? Our
supplier.
Thank you, energy supplier. And so we're using that for both heating and cooling. We do still use gas, but it's only for the stove, and we only use it for things like this when we have large gatherings. Between 24 and 25, all of the lights were replaced with LEDs, except I think we still have some fluorescence in here.
No, those are LEDs.
They're LEDs too. Oh, I didn't even know you could do it that way. Cool. Learn something new every day. A couple of years ago, we had articles in our monthly meeting newsletter sort of informing people about different sustainable practices. It was really nice. There was something every month that got written, and I think somebody's going to start doing that this year as well. And we're talking now about the possibility of installation of solar panels on the roof of the building, and whether we can actually get more energy onto the grid. As to individuals, a lot of people are planting native plants in homes and home gardens. There's also a lot of interest in becoming part of the homegrown national parks. And if you don't know about that, you can talk to me about that after at lunch. Many members and attenders have hybrid or electric vehicles. It's like a showroom for the Toyota Prius when you come to meetings sometimes. But there are people with full electric vehicles as well. Many people compost kitchen and garden scraps, and we have a compost pile here at the meeting as well. Solar panel installation on private homes. Mimi's going to talk about that today. We have Debbie and Nancy talking about different kinds of garden practices that people have. We had attendance at a query discussion 2 weeks ago focusing on climate change, and that was a really, really busy discussion. It was great. We also have political action of members and attenders who are writing to their representatives, their senators, their local representatives, their mayors, town councils about their concerns with anything environmental. One thing I forgot to put on either of these lists was the fact that we have a newly formed Climate Action Committee here. We were doing things with the climate with social concerns, but it's just too big a concern. We needed a separate committee. So that's now been formed in the meeting. And that's basically what we've been doing, both corporately and individually. So my last quote, also another one that was interesting from Bristol Quaker. I think it's sort of like the the quarterly meetings, and Bristol Quakers had a really interesting quote. "Do not despair about your capacity to achieve change. We cannot transform the world on our own, but we are not alone when we make our contribution." And I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind. I had an Edmund Burke quote that was also there, but he was a conservative English parliamentarian. I thought, no, I'm not going to use that one. But what he said was, don't be afraid of what you're doing is small. Worse than that is not to do anything at all. And I think that's a really, really big thing to keep in mind. So I'm going to introduce our panel, and the first person to speak is going to be Debbie Orban. Should I start? Go right ahead.
Okay, I'm Debbie Orban, and this is my small story, and it's mostly about biodiversity, but it also impacts climate. Even as a child, I was enchanted by wildflowers and felt gardening was spirit-led. In spring, kneeling down and pressing seeds into the soil is an act of faith. Tending the garden in summer is an act of hopeful persistence. In summer and fall, gathering what has grown is an act of gratitude. In winter, watching the garden in stillness is an act of love and reverence for the earth that holds us all. I am just one of many gardeners in our meeting, in the wider Quaker community, and millions of sowers of seeds worldwide. I believe all gardeners have great respect for our earth, the sun, air, water, and soil that makes growth possible. Today, my husband and I garden for a variety of reasons: to raise food, protect biodiversity and wildlife, and to mitigate the effects of climate change. But that wasn't always the case. Our understanding of how to garden and why we tend the earth has evolved over the years. Still, there are values that have guided us from the beginning. In 1978, when my husband Jim and I purchased 10 acres on a south-facing slope in Upper Bucks County, we knew we wanted to protect the land and preserve it as a habitat for wildlife. This is our simple story. The property was mostly open fields, so after building a passive solar house, we began planting and/or moving trees. We planted an orchard of mainly apple trees and added other fruit trees throughout the years. Today we have large sugar maples and silver maples that we planted decades ago. We also have a number of trees that appeared on their own, and we encourage their growth: oaks and beech, dogwoods, and sassafras. I love wildflowers, so when sections of our lawn became havens for different species of violets, I was more delighted than distressed. We were also excited to discover jack-in-the-pulpits, bloodroots, mayapples, and other spring ephemerals in the woods. Life in our yard, gardens, fields, and forests was mostly happenstance and serendipity than purposeful planning. When a tree or new plant emerged from the ground, we often took a let it be, watch and see perspective. When we began attending Quaker meetings in 1982, we learned about the Quaker testimony of stewardship, and it merged with our ecological awareness. We began thinking of ourselves more as caretakers of the land than owners. Even with the best of intentions, we made mistakes along the way, and we are still learning lessons every day. We learned that we could not grow apples, vegetables, or anything when the deer population soared. We admired the deer, but after too many treatments for Lyme disease, we decided to bar them from a portion of our property. Our deer fence worked wonders, but then we learned about invasive plants and realized that we had an abundance of plants that were actually harming the land, both inside and outside our deer fence. Japanese stiltgrass was suffocating the native milkweed and bee balm. Garlic mustard was poisoning the soil so that the spring ephemerals didn't have a chance. Other prickly shrubs, barberries, autumn olives, and multiflora rose were displacing the native spice bush. Honeysuckle and bittersweet vines, and lately mile-a-minute vines, were choking trees and new growth. It was a wake-up call that even as we admired the beauty of the natural world around us, we were losing biodiversity, and we needed to take a more active approach. We began years of digging, pulling, and removing the hardy plants that are not the best food source for wildlife. We even removed plants that we had planted, like butterfly bush and English ivy, on purpose, after learning that they were not beneficial. Removing the invasive plants is an endless and ongoing task. Along our gardening journey, we were guided by other Quakers in our meeting, especially Dee Crushwich and Annette Bennett. Dee took us on garden tours and taught us about the care of plants. Annette created a garden oasis in her small yard in Bethlehem that delighted both the bees and her neighbors. She raised spectacular flowers and delicious vegetables side by side. I am grateful to my fellow Quaker garden gurus and teachers. For years, Jim and I read and followed the advice of Rodale's organic gardening magazines. We knew that herbicides and pesticides would be harmful to our health and that of the birds and wildlife. We didn't use any. We learned about regenerative agriculture from our local Environmental Advisory Council and the group Kiss the Ground and stopped tilling and hoeing as much as we used to. We began to see the soil as a living organism, a tapestry of interconnections that not only nourish plants and trees, but gift us with lightning bugs and solitary bees. This year we planted a winter cover plant of peas and oats to add to our leaf mulch to help protect the soil. We learned about the importance of nurturing pollinators and keystone species from Doug Tallamy, an entomologist from the University of Delaware. Keystone species are the plants that support the greatest diversity of insects, which are at the base of the food chain. Insects and caterpillars are essential if we hope to have frogs, birds, and other wildlife. Oaks, maples, and native cherry trees are keystone species. 2 years ago, we planted 5 white oaks, 5 red oaks, 5 red maples, and 5 cherry trees to replace the ash trees that are dying and to provide more food for caterpillars. In the last few years, we also planted 3 different pollinator gardens with native perennials to help increase the availability of plants that provide nectar and habitat for bees and butterflies. We continue to add other native trees and shrubs to our landscape, such as pawpaws, viburnums, dogwoods, elderberries, and winterberries. Some of these shrubs provide winter food and shelter for the birds. We wanted to be part of Doug Tallamy's goal of creating a homegrown national park. Tallamy thinks that if all of us just devoted part of our lawns to keystone plants and trees, we would cover more area than all our national parks put together. To promote biodiversity and have an impact on climate change, we decided to keep planting natives and mow less often. Native grasses that have deep roots help sequester carbon much better than grass. Grass, we learned, is basically an ecological desert, unless it is sprinkled with clover, dandelion, violets, etc. Planting trees and reducing the size of lawns are 2 of the best ways landowners can reduce their contributions to climate change. At this point in history, every choice we take matters. Finally, Robin Wall Kimmerer, a scientist and a teacher of indigenous wisdom, reminds us of the ethic of reciprocity that lies at the heart of the gift economy in her latest book, The Service Fairy. The Service Fairy is an example of reciprocity rather than accumulation, where wealth and security come from the quality of our relationships, not the illusion of self-sufficiency. Plants continue to share their abundance with us. They contribute oxygen and sequester our carbon. Tending the earth in gratitude is a way of honoring their gifts and respecting our interdependence. All flourishing is mutual. May we do our part.
Thank you, Debbie. What Debbie doesn't know is she's now going to be my Dee and Annette. Will be guiding me as I try to do more in my garden. And next we will have Mimi Lang, who's going to tell us about her decision to put solar panels onto her roof.
Okay, my name is Mimi Lang, and I've been part of the Quaker meeting since about 2008, and that happens because I'm a peace and justice person, and I was at a vigil, and somebody said to me, "You must be a Quaker," and I wasn't a Quaker. So that sort of initiated my interest, and I've been a lifelong, deep-blooded, left-wing Catholic for a long time. So now I call myself a Quacklic, because that makes up for being a Quaker and a Catholic. And I've always been interested in peace and justice, and I was doing things at home, like, saving plastic bags and doing all the things that I think that everybody does these things, but I've discovered that that's not true. Some people throw away things that I would, recycle, or washing out my plastic bags to dry them out to put them somewhere else. And so a few years ago, I was inspired by somebody. I don't even remember what the inspiration was, but I thought, gee, I could have solar panels on my roof. I have a small house, about 1,500 feet. Is that feet or
Square feet.
Okay. See, I always depend on my auditor to help me out. So I ordered the guy to come and look at the roof, and so he did all the measurements and stuff. And then I didn't hear from him for a long time. I kept calling back, and he said that he would do it, but I guess they just were busy, which is a good thing, to be busy. But and so he came and he put solar panels on my roof in I think October 22. And now, how many years ago is that? 4.
Three.
4. So every electric bill I have since then has been $15. And I thought, I couldn't believe that was really the result, except since we've had this very cold weather and I couldn't hang out the clothes on the line because it, then that month my bill went to $16. So I mean, if people would realize how much money they can save and what that does to the planet, because sunlight is free, and it goes on, and we have so much of it. And pretty soon, I have these numbers written down. I think for how long we'll have coal is about 120 years. How much we'll have oil, about 50 years, and gas somewhere in between. So those are fossil fuels, and they're going to go away, even though it might take a while. Our goal is to make sure they don't take any time at all, that we get rid of the fossil fuels. So every little thing that we do, like having on what is the name of that?
Solar panels?
Solar panels. Excuse me. I have a little speech problem sometimes. Anyway, so, but you know what? I have a pretty big backyard, and I look up at those solar panels, and I think, wow, look what I'm doing for the world, and I feel like, that's really special. So, wouldn't we all like to feel special by having our world enlightened by what we're doing? Let me tell you this. My friends here know this, but let nothing disturb you. Nothing cause you to fear. Everything in the world is changing. Only God stays the same. So I think what's changing is we're going to have more solar panels. And God will be so delighted.
Thanks. That was great. That was wonderful. Nancy Johnston will speak to us next.
That the original inhabitants of this property were Lenni Lenape. And we all of the meetings, even in Bucks Quarter, I think, are part of their homeland called Lenapehoking. So we are, what will we say, humbled to pass on the love we have for the Lenni Lenape lands. So that's one piece of history that's more than 1,000 years old. And by the way, our meeting house, as far as we are from Green Street, is still inside the boundaries of the walking purchase. I think the western property was the furthest west. So that's one piece of history. The history of our meeting, we just celebrated our 75th birthday a couple of years ago, where Quakers in the Lehigh Valley started worshiping together in about 1949 in people's homes. That so many children came, we had to build a building. So this building obviously is pretty modern compared to the beautiful stone buildings in further Bucks County. But you're sitting on benches from the 1700s. So our modern building provides us light two different ways, but we are sitting on the history of Quakers from 250 years ago, right?
No wonder I have a sore butt.
Nancy, some of them are from Baldington meetings, so.
Oh, that's where they're from?
1793 Meeting House.
Well, the first story I need to tell you is almost 40 years old, that the first time I ever came to this meeting was in 1980. And my son, the young man I mentioned whose wife is now dealing with breast cancer, was 10 months old. And now he's 46. So he and his brother, and I think Martha's children and Debbie's daughter, all were in first day school here. And our teachers got together and put together a project for them to apply for wildlife habitat status for the meeting house. So the same children who made the healing quilt are the children who helped write the application. There was no such thing as internet at that time. And so what you have to have a certified wildlife habitat is 4 things: food, shelter, water, and places for animals to raise their young. And we're going to hear in a little minute how current day kids trapped all over the yard looking for tracks of animals today. And I will say that a couple of springs or summers ago, we had 2 families of fox. Now, isn't that appropriate? That we're a Quaker meeting and we got visited by a fox, George Fox. George Fox was channeled. And so baby fox grew up on this property. And of course, 2 homes that I've lived in previously also benefited from that wildlife habitat, backyard habitat status. And so my current home is actually, if you look at my email address, is Sacred Grove, but I live in a sacred grove that's certified by the National Wildlife Federation. And I do have handouts for people to take back to your meetings, to your first day schools, to your social concerns, how to apply for that certificate that we have. So moving forward to 2019, this is a newer history story. I got with some people I truly love, and they told me about the monarch butterfly and the life cycle. And so in my current home, that's certified National Wildlife Backyard Habitat, I planted milkweed, I learned the cycle, I carry my little case with me. This is to carry a chrysalis or caterpillars on milkweed to teach children. And one fateful day, I opened my mail, and there was a letter from the Bethlehem Township Code Enforcement telling me that my neighbors had reported me for noxious vegetation, and that if I didn't cut it down, I was going to have a $1,000 fine because it was too noxious. But when indeed it was actually full-blown blooming milkweed. And so, keeping with the testimonies of simplicity, equality, stewardship, I invited the code enforcement guy to come to my yard and see what the neighbors were complaining about. So I got him to help me look for monarch eggs underneath the milkweed leaves, and I taught him the whole cycle. I also have a plaque that says my yard is certified by the North American Butterfly Association. So he was taking pictures of that, took pictures of the wildlife certification. And then he took a deep breath and he says to me, "Miss Johnston, this case is closed." So I'm living out Martha Postlethwaite's poem of that I can't save the world, but I can teach people, I can have a heart where I see that of God in everyone. And the little ripples have been amazing, because now I have a yearly open house on a Sunday afternoon where my entire neighborhood gets invited to come and have some lemonade and cookies, and the kids go and look for caterpillar eggs to prove that this habitat is important, and you could do it too. And I very carefully save all the milkweed seeds so that they're not blowing in my neighbor's yards, And so I'm trying to do my best for the environment. I even have pictures that my neighbors came in my yard actually trespassing and took pictures of what my yard looked like. Anyway, I'm going to be at the potluck, and if you have further questions for me, I'd be glad to talk to you. And just like Debbie and Mimi's contributions, that it's just the way we live our lives. A local newspaper called the Bethlehem Press did an article on the milkweed and my gardens, and it's called "Holding Court with Monarchs." And part of it is, you can see the milkweed in bloom on here, but as a gift to myself, on my 75th birthday, I got a monarch butterfly tattoo. And it's right on my radial artery. So if you put your fingers on my pulse, this little butterfly's alive. It's pulsating. So that's how strongly I feel about this issue. So thanks for reminding me that.
Yeah, so I'm just going to tell a very brief my personal journey to this. You want me to stand up? Sure. Okay, so I started becoming interested in renewable energy as a college student in the 70s, mostly in terms of pollution. And then in the 80s, I came to Quaker meeting, and I was really moved by the quote, "Live simply so that others can simply live." And I think many of my decisions throughout my adult life have been informed by that, based on the testimony of simplicity and also the necessity of frugality. So a lot of decisions that we make regarding addressing the climate change are also helping with your household finances. Such as hanging your laundry on the line. These are things that I just did mostly because of being frugal. Getting a car that gets a good gas mileage, or biking and walking and taking public transit as much as possible, eating lower on the food chain, changing out light bulbs so that they last a lot longer and use less electricity, going from incandescent to fluorescent to LEDs. Then in the 90s, I learned about global warming, and I became concerned about our climate. And my husband and I took a Pendle Hill workshop. I think it was called 100 Things You Want to Do in Your Next 100 Years, something like that. And it really helped us focus on how we wanted to live, how we wanted to spend our time and resources. And we decided that at our next move, we wanted to be able to move to a place where we could have solar panels. We lived on the north side of a double, so we could not have any solar energy. So because of that, we were very focused on what we wanted as far as our lifestyle. And we were able to move to a property where we could put solar panels on. And part of our reason for doing that was there were many reasons. We really cared about the environment. We cared about the future of our planet and wanted to get off of burning fossil fuels. And we wanted to set an example to our neighbors, so it was very visible that you could see we had solar panels on our house. And also we had inherited a little money from the death of my husband's parents, and we wanted to invest it, but it's really hard to make an investment that doesn't invest in the things that you don't want it invested in, unless maybe you're a professional. But we could not figure out what to do with this little bit of money, and it just seemed like the best investment was for our future. It would cut down on our electricity bills. So that was the first big thing that we did. And then several years later, we had a second inheritance from my side of the family. And for the same reasons, we didn't know what to do with the money. Our old house that was built in 1850 had a oil boiler. And I love our radiators. They really nice heat, but I didn't like burning oil. So we did decide finally to replace that with heat pumps and mini splits. And we felt like this was a win-win-win decision because it was a way of using our money in investing in our future. It was a way of supporting the local economy because we hired a local company to install the heat pumps, and the heat pumps are made in America, so we were supporting our national economy, and it got us off of fossil fuels. So I'll just tell you a detail about that. We did get a $400 rebate from PPL for each unit that we replaced, as well as we put in a heat pump water heater. So I'd be happy to talk to anybody about that at the potluck. That also we got a rebate for. And then, of course, we got a deduction on our federal taxes. And one last thing, I wasn't asked to talk about this, but I don't want to leave without mentioning Citizens Climate Lobby because I've been involved with them for over 10 years, right? And it's a organization that's very similar to FCNL, except focused only on the climate crisis. And so we're active in trying to get our legislators to pass legislation addressing climate change. So I think we want to hear from the kids now.
Thank you. That was wonderful. The children are here and they're our future. And so we wanted them to come and talk to us.
So we started out with, we had 10 young people all together, and we've lost them over the last 2 hours, but here are the 4 that are still with us, but they did We did a bunch of tracking, and they did some pictures of what they did or what they liked, and they are going to tell us about that. So who would like to go first? Should I just assign somebody? Go ahead, Carter, why don't you go ahead, be the first person.
So we saw fox tracks and I drew a fox. And I
Speak up
saw
louder.
You know what, Carter? You can actually yell as loud as you want. Because like, it just tell everybody.
And you can also put your picture up in front of
See
the
that little
camera right
camera?
there.
Put your picture up on the camera. Great job.
Sure, I'd be happy to hold it.
You want to tell us a little bit about
What is that?
what you drew, Carter?
we saw fox tracks.
It's a track out in the snow of what?
Foxes.
A red fox?
Wow.
We were talking
Fox.
about the fox when you were out there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carter.
Who's next?
Okay.
So we made pictures about our what we did out there, and we got these certificates.
We have deer tracks too, huh?
Wow.
And
Wow, that's cool.
I'm not sure what it means, but
Oh, thanks.
and these are all
Oh, cool, the track.
tracks, whatever that is.
Nice, yeah.
Very good.
I got it. Thanks.
Oh, Natalie, you want me to hold yourself?
Wow, Natalie did a great job.
I put bear tracks, deer tracks, and bunny tracks.
Squirrel?
Yeah, squirrel.
Squirrel.
Squirrel tracks.
Wow.
Excellent.
Love that. Thank
Pencil
you.
That
over
is lovely.
everything.
Oh, nice.
Great.
This is what I drew.
Can you tell it? Oh, did you want to cover that up? Okay.
Carlos, what did you see?
This is what I drew for the tracks.
And you saw those tracks outside?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
what are the tracks? What animals?
A bird track, a fox track, and a deer track.
Nice.
Nice job. Thank you.